greatest symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
We are broadcasting from the Blue Chew Studios. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code ARN at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. Hello and welcome to Arn. This is Paul Bromwell, and today I'm joined by the Hall of Famer, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of the Spine Buster, one of the best tag team wrestlers in the history of the business, and oh boy, that's damn true. He's the enforcer. He's Double A. He's Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you this week, my friend?
Once again, a very strong plug. Thank you, young man. Good. I'm glad we're past all this, or at least some of this bad weather that has overtaken the country as of late. Things are looking good, I guess.
It has been, you know what, not only the weather, the Northeast, it went from like the 60s, late, 50s, 60s, to now we're in 20s and 30s. It just dropped all of a sudden. So it's cold up in these Pennsylvania parts. But listen, man, hey, I want to do a little peek behind the curtain for our listeners, because you and I are recording this show the Monday of Thanksgiving week due to scheduling. You had some downtime before you start the big WrestleCade trip, so we said, listen, let's just get some shows knocked out. And so here we are. But I want to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter campaign. It launched November 15th. It's fully funded, Arn. The Comics to Go, Dirk Manning and his team have done an incredible job on the story of Tony Schiavone. But, man, it's your turn, and I can't wait to see what's in store for our fans with your book, man.
Well, I'm thrilled and excited about it doing so well. I think it fully funded over the weekend. I think it was a weekend thing.
It did.
Right? Now, I don't know if that's good or
That's
bad.
good, man. That's good.
I am so happy, though, that the interest is there from all the folks that asked over the years, and it seems like everybody's excited about it because it's going to be partial comic book, partial autobiography with a lot of stuff's going to, you're going to have to adjust your seat and go, holy God, I didn't know that was going to be in there. So, we hope it's going to be what everyone expected it to be. We're real proud of it.
Part of the fun for me as a fan has been watching your social media and see some of your friends come out and talk about it, whether it's the Big Show, Paul White, Tony Schiavone, Ricky Starks, and some other guys that are really helping put it over as well. So it's cool to see them come in. And guys, listen, the stretch goals are now in play. Go to arncomic.com and help us unlock all the bonus content and material in the autobiography of the founder of the Four Horsemen. And, man, this is so cool to get behind for you, Arn. And you're going to help us enhance the project and tell the complete story of Arn Anderson, my life as the enforcer. It is a graphic novel. It's a graphic autobiography, as Arn said. So, man, let's really get behind it. Again, arncomic.com. and help support Double A. This is cool, man. I can't wait to get my own copy.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited too, and it's just some things I never thought would be possible, and they're coming to fruition. And thanks to everybody.
Well, buddy, listen, in addition to your, comic book getting fully funded, after the Full Gear pay-per-view that just occurred, again, I know this is dropping December 3rd to all of the main audience, but we have a new heavyweight champion in AEW, the company that you work for. And Arn, we don't talk a lot about current happenings in AEW, but there was, my son and I were in New Jersey for the big event, and the main event saw MJF win the world title with the help of William Regal and a set of brass knuckles. So I can't wait to see where that goes. But then at the press conference after, MJF, he cut a scathing promo that gave many chill bumps. What did you think about this? I want to hear Arn's thoughts on the 26-year-old heel, Maxwell Jacob Freeman, as the new face of AEW.
Well, I have often said many times over the last 30 years that the road does not rise up to meet any man. If you want something in this business, you go grab it, snatch it. If you got to hit somebody in the back of the head beforehand, good. If you got to throw somebody through a plate glass window beforehand, good. We're in the fighting business. And there really are no rules. If you can pull it off behind the referee's back, it is what it is. We're all human. We all make mistakes. If you don't believe it, watch NFL on Sunday. Those officials make more mistakes than they get it right. So if you could take advantage of that and further your career, which was at that point in time, MJF felt like he did a little something extra. William Regal has always been a limey bastard.
There it is.
Limey rat bastard. But you know what? That's one of the things that I respected most about him. He would go to any lengths to get a victory. Am I going to sit here in a glass house and say I didn't do the same? Everybody that's successful in this business sometimes has to pull the trigger. MJF pulled the trigger at the right time. You know, he's a guy that he knows exactly what he wants out of this business, and there is no second place in his mind. Now, how I feel about him one way or the other personally really doesn't matter. How anybody feels about him personally really doesn't matter. What does matter is right now he's in the driver's seat.
He absolutely is, Arn. He's got the championship. He's got the belt. He's the world champion. And with William Regal at his side, it's going to be fun to see how this unfolds. Talk about a mouthpiece. There's just nobody that can make a crowd, just bring a crowd to complete intensity as far as when listening to his promos. You kind of hang on every word. You don't know what he's going to say next, type thing. Kind of reminds me of a guy that I like to watch from back in the late 80s in the Crockett Promotions. Maybe a guy that I talk to every week here on this podcast. But he kind of has that same captivating, he draws you in, sucks you in with the promo ability. And he's getting it done in the ring. He's worked hard on his body, so it should be fun to see where this takes him.
Well, what's going to be interesting is how it's received with the rest of that group. You know, there's some pretty heavy hitters that have aligned themselves with Moxley, and
that's right.
We're aligned with Regal and trusted him to be part of what was going on. It'd be interesting to see what a Bryan Danielson's going to have to say. Cesaro is going to have to say, correct?
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That's why we watch.
What's the junior member of that unit?
Wheeler Yuta.
We've come a long, long way. Wheeler is a very talented young man. He's going to have something to say about this. So, interesting.
There you go. Well, Arn, listen, the last time you and I spent some time together, before the Ask Arn Anything, you and I were talking about some angles, and we had some questions come up, and we gave the research guy some homework. And he did his homework, and I have some answers for you. He came through for you, and we were talking about the origins of Doom, and Woman was talked about as far as whatever happened to her. She was with the Horsemen, then she kind of faded off into the sunset. She was initially introduced as Robin Green. We remember that when she made advances towards Rick Steiner. He refused the advances. She would finally become the manager of Doom, introduce them to Wrestling World at Halloween Havoc. She put them together with two purposes. One, capture the tag titles, and number two, she wanted the Steiners to come to an end, okay? Rick had broken her little heart. And then at Clash of the Champions X, Doom failed to defeat the Steiner brothers for the tag titles. They lost their masks, and that's when they were forced to unmask. So it was that stipulation when the mask came off. So we were talking about why did their masks come off? That's it. Teddy Long would then become the manager of them, and Woman transitioned over to the Horsemen for the remainder of the spring. And at the end of the spring, she sailed off into the sunset for a little while. So that's kind of how that happened. Doom continued their feud with the Steiners, and then Simmons and Reed finally captured the NWA tag titles at Capital Combat. And then we also talked about a follow-up question that had come in about Vader and the Spinebuster. You gave him the Spinebuster in a handicap match that was you and Flair against Vader at Clash of Champions in August of '95. Vader would go on to kick out and beat both you and Flair, and this was used to set up a match you and Flair had at Fall Brawl 1990. But the research guy says this is one of your top 5 Spinebusters of all time, the one that you delivered to Vader. So
I think he's 100% right. The fact that Vader kicked out is not as important as the fact that I was able to get him up.
The fact that you got that big man, rotated them hips, and got him over, that's impressive.
Damn right it is. And I won't make any excuses about anything. If you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. 450 pounds is 450 pounds.
Well, listen, to our audience, if you want to go check that out, Clash of Champions, August 1995. Maybe we'll get Marcus to find the clip and throw that up on social media. That would be cool. So shout out to Marcus there. With that, it's time for us to get to business this month. And we're talking all things November 1990. In October of 1990, you and Rick wrestled Doom at Halloween Havoc, the match ending in that double countout. We watched it 2 weeks ago. And as you said in that episode, this program was accentuated by its serious nature and tone. Believability, credibility, that's what that match had. And this program with Doom, it really did have it all. You took the lead on the interviews. As we talked about, you were right center front, even the Nature Boy standing by your side. But as you said, it really helped reestablish you to the audience as the enforcer of the Four Horsemen. But I want to ask you about Flair for a second, because Rick was usually that 45-minute match guy. He's that finesse wrestler, and this program called for him to be a much more physical wrestler. During this period of his career, Nate would turn up the physicality a little bit. I'm talking about the matches with Harley. Think about him and Ron Garvin and Terry Funk in this time period. What is it about Rick that allowed him to find this gear in order to put on the performance in these types of matches and the programs here? These were different than say maybe some of those finesse matches.
Well, the reality of the matter is you can't become world champion as many times as Flair did and beat the number of champions that he beat without having that next gear and having something special and, you know, knowing when it's time to punch a guy in the teeth and kick a guy in the nuts. And he had no problem with that, you know, and that's what made him able to compete on a one-to-one basis with anybody. And now if you put him in a tag match and you get the referee's back turned and a swift kick in the nuts will really turn the match around on its head. So I think his just overall knowledge and ability to do whatever it takes to win. And that's what a lot of people lack. They're not willing to go that extra mile and risk getting DQ'd or risking the support of the fans or whatever it may be. Some people aren't willing to pull that trigger. Rick is a guy that will pull the trigger.
Right, and let's not mince words. That's why Rick, for many, is one of the best, if not the best of all time, because he was able to have those finesse matches, but also brawl when necessary. I think of the Terry Funk match, that I Quit match that he had. There was a lot of brawling in that match, and some of the other matches he could do it all. Maybe not as often, the brawling style as the finesse style, but he was just, all around. Whether it was with the on the mic or in the ring, could get it done.
Well, let's just look at it this way. We'll close with this. When you look at, when the fans look at, and Rick looks at himself as being the dirtiest player in the game, and that's an accolade, that's a positive. Think about that for a minute. And when the fans support that and go, hey, he's the dirtiest player in the game, but it's not a negative, it's a positive. That ought to tell you everything you need to know.
There you go. Arn, physicality is something that Doom was known for, whether it be in the ring or in the gym. But if you're lacking the energy, time, or discipline of Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, God knows I am, and still want to have more energy, better gut health, and a better night's sleep, might we suggest our friends at Athletic Greens? It's a better night's sleep. It's better, like I said, gut health. Just one scoop, Arn, gives you 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals. Again, improving your focus. What's not to like about this? This is a slam dunk.
Yeah, thousands of people can't be wrong, and I guarantee you, if you ask Simmons, hey, if you're not taking this already, would you give it a try? He understands the value of nutrients and, feeding your body all the right stuff. So, my God, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he looks incredible. Yeah. So he's doing something. I think the Athletic Greens may just be on the menu.
There you go. And it can be on your menu, too. It costs less than $3 a day. Completely worth the investment, guys. It's received, as Arn said, thousands, 7,000 plus 5-star reviews. Right now is the time to reclaim your health, arm your immune system. Hey, this is a rough time of the year. Colds and flu season, all that's happening. Get your vitamins in. You can do it with 1 scoop in water. That's it. No need for all kinds of horse pills and supplements and all that. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Arn. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Arn to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Well, Arn, in the month of November, there will be no letdown, buddy, for you in terms of physicality. On the house show loop, listen to this. You and Rick continued to work in the semi-main event most nights. Interestingly, on the first of the month, you and Rick worked against Doom in the main event in a card in your hometown of Rome, Georgia, at the Memorial Gym. We haven't seen Rome come up much on the results, buddy, as we've walked through your career. What was it like for you to go back home? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was, there were a lot of faces that I saw out in the crowd that I knew that was a familiar face. I just didn't know from where. It was really almost surreal, as many times as Pee Wee Anderson, who just got put in the Northwest Georgia Hall of Fame, I might add, and myself would go to as fans, and we would try to get down by on the rail and, almost be in a position to touch the guys as they went by. Probably would not have been a bad move, but as a fan, we had so many memories. And then to be in that ring wrestling and with those opponents and with that partner, it was just, God almighty, as you can imagine, it was surreal.
Playing the heel role the whole time, I'm sure, Arn, right?
Oh, yeah. I was a heel when I lived there. Wow.
So it wasn't a big change at all.
Yeah, that not much of a stretch.
Oh, that's good. So the storyline with Doom also became increasingly personal during this month, by the way. The Horsemen were denied a rematch from Halloween Havoc immediately. Instead, Teddy Long and Doom proposed some interesting stakes for you and Rick. You and Rick responded to the challenge laid out by Teddy during a stand-up interview with Jim Ross. So here we go. Teddy Long saying, we're not going to do the traditional tag team return match. This is our first clip of the week, Arn. Let's find out what you and Rick were willing to put up to earn that rematch. This is from NWA Pro, November 4th, 1990.
Welcome back to the main event, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Ross back with Arn Anderson, Nature Boy Ric Flair of the Horsemen. If you were with us yesterday on our broadcast yesterday morning, these two gentlemen joined Gordon Soley, and they said they were going to make Teddy Long the offer of a lifetime, the deal of a century, if you will, last night on World Championship Wrestling. Well, that deal went down. It'll be consummated at the Clash of Champions here on TBS on Tuesday night, November the 20th. The deal is very simple. If Ric Flair and Arn Anderson win a one-on-one match with either Butch Reed or Ron Simmons at the Clash of Champions, then they will get their rematch for the World Tag Titles at Starrcade. But if the Horsemen, either Horseman lose that singles match, then the limousine of the Horseman and Ric Flair's favorite toy, his boat, will go and become the property of Teddy Long.
Well, JR, you're a real articulate man, and this should tell you if we're willing to put up our favorite toy, that boat, where we spend our leisure time for a crack at those belts, how much the belts mean to us. Is the most prestigious title in tag team wrestling. Now, Teddy Long, we think this is such a done deal that we're willing to risk that. You got to ask yourself, are you that confident?
The difference between men and boys is the size of their toys. 1,000 women have said that to me over the last 10 years. You're looking at a man that's made and spent 3 fortunes. So these toys mean nothing. The bottom line is, the way those toys are acquired is by being the world champion or champions, our next goal. Woo!
What a showdown at the Clash of Champions. More on that in the hour, but right now, let's go to the ring.
There it is, Arn, the line from Ric Flair. The difference between men and boys is the size of their toys. And I promise, if Blue Chew was a sponsor this week, this would be a transition right into shilling the dick gimmicks. But in typical fashion, you, as the consummate professional, did not crack at all at Nature's line. And adding money and personal assets to this feud is an old-school tactic, I get it. But it certainly served its purpose in extending the storyline. What did you make of all this?
Well, it wasn't my boat we were going to lose, so I could pop off all I want.
Yes. Did you like this idea? Looking back on it, let's just do, quarterback. We're quarterbacking now. We're sitting in our chairs.
Well, it was a little bit. I mean, if I heard what I heard, I said the toys meant a lot to us. That's why we're putting them up.
You were selling it, yeah.
He said it didn't mean anything to him.
He did, that's right.
So I think we contradicted each other, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're catching it here is probably too late.
What do you think of the premise of it all? Of, hey, it's going to be one-on-one, us at Clash of the Champions. If we lose, you get a boat and a car, whatever it was, a boat, and I thought he said limo at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then if you win, though, you get tag titles. Do you like that whole stipulation scenario? Are you a fan of that?
Not really.
Okay. Well, listen, before we get to the Clash of the Champions, I also want to take a moment to ask you about Sid, the way he was used following the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view, because in the first week in November, Sid would work the house show main events against Sting. Subsequently, and for most of the month thereafter, though, Sid and new U.S. champion Stan the Lariat Hansen worked against Sting and Luger, even winning some of these matches. Luger, as you might expect, took the loss when Sid and Hansen went over, but Double A, Sid held his own at Halloween Havoc. But creative moves him into a tag match with someone who's not even on the Horsemen. This trend continues in December 1990, which we're going to discuss next week. Hansen's going to drop the title to Luger at Starrcade as well, but this creative is the question for right now. Was this pairing easy or even lazy simply because Sid had wrestled Sting and Luger had wrestled Hansen at Halloween Havoc? Or do you think this is even more of the day-to-day trial and error you had alluded to last time we talked about the Black Scorpion?
Well, I mean, Stan Hansen and Sid are almost, you'd look at that and be, well, hell, that's almost an unbeatable team. Stan Hansen was a horse, buddy. He just didn't wrestle enough in the States. Most of his time was spent in Japan, and that's where you really saw what a beast he was. I know they were doing everything they could to keep Sid working those main events and working with those main event players so that he got into that role. I mean, they were pushing him to be the guy somewhere down the road. And I'm sure they were thinking ahead enough to have him at some point possibly screw Sting for the title. So I kind of see what they were doing, keeping him in that main spot. You condition the audience as a company when you look at the way a guy's used or guys are used or ladies are used. They're conditioned that if you're using them on top and in those main event matches, you're going to be a main event player. Just like if you leave somebody down underneath too long, they become that underneath player. And I just think Sid was getting a little bit better each time he went to the ring. And Sting and Luger hopefully were doing the right thing as far as elevating him. So I think the premise was right.
Yeah, and not only that, it's something that we see now in current wrestling, where between pay-per-views, you're going to see all kinds of different, tag teams put together in order to get the main two to that pay-per-view match. You might see them paired up as a tag team, on 1 week of a show versus, another duo, whatever it takes to kind of build the story arc to then get back to that main match again. So we see that oftentimes in booking now.
Yeah, I mean, that's not unheard of.
Yeah. We have a question, our first question of the week from friend of the show, Drew Landry. And he says, Drew wants to know if moving Sid down the card meant that it was time for him to return to the tuxedo. Do you think it was time for him to return to the tuxedo?
No. Hell no. Hopefully he took that tuxedo and burned it up or threw it in the closet or did something. That was not his finest, which had no fault of his own.
That's good stuff, though. As the Horsemen indicated, the match at Clash of the Champions determined whether or not they were going to be able to challenge Doom for the tag titles at Starrcade 1990. Remember, if the Horsemen lose the contest, Doom would take possession of not only the boat, but the limousine. And on November 20th, 1990, the Clash of the Champions, Thanksgiving Thunder, it took place, by the way, in Jacksonville, Florida. Typical of the time period, the Horsemen set the tone for the evening, with the stand-up interview. Yes, we're already here with our friend and AFS colleague, Tony Schiavone. And in the second clip of the week, we have the interview and the conclusion of the match between Flair and Butch. This is Flair and Butch, the representatives of their chosen teams. November 20th, 1990, Clash of the Champions. Here we go.
Jim Ross employed dangerously. I have in my hand what's going to go down here tonight. Either Ric Flair in this bill of sale contract will give over his 65-foot limo and the yacht, or Teddy Long's going to wear chauffeur's outfit. He's going to chauffeur around for a day, but more importantly, if the Horsemen win this one-on-one match tonight, you gentlemen get the rematch at Starrcade.
Well, let's tell it like it is. We are, whether you like it or don't like it, we are the Horsemen. And tonight, live, nationwide, one of us goes against one of them. Keep in mind, the world television champion, and in my own modest right, 6 times your world champion. So Simmons, you and Reed, and Teddy Long, remember tonight you've got to walk the aisle. Woo!
Tony Schiavone, it's a simple case of man's greed completely destroying them.
Okay, fans, still to come. Again, they're exchanging rights. The fatigue factor's got to be setting in here. He's elevated. Flair really been battered and hammered by Reed thus far.
Again!
The third Gorilla Slam Flair has sustained in this contest. A lateral press.
One,
two, and a shoulder up when Anderson pulled him outside. Anderson pulled the ref outside to perhaps prevent the pin.
Reed's going up top. This is how he won the World Tag Team title.
Reed with a shoulder block on Flair. Flair is hurt.
Flair's leg is hurt.
The referees are Teddy Long.
Long is an idiot. I cannot believe he is distracting the referee. They can win the match right here.
A tactical error, perhaps by Theodore Long. It has given Flair time to recuperate. Oh my gosh!
They're all down.
They fell. Reed fell on Nick Patrick and on Teddy Long.
They're all out.
Simmons in the ring. Ron Simmons just nailed Flair with a clothesline. Reed's gonna pin him here, but no referee in sight.
Here comes Double A. It's a broken with the Horseman.
He's got a chair. Anderson with a chair in the back of the head. Simmons thinks his team has won it. The referee back in the ring.
Two. They got Horseman with it.
The Horsemen win it. They'll get their rematch at Starrcade.
Arn, this is hilarious because we just talked about William Regal handing the brass knucks to MJF, and then we watched this clip. This is great.
Well, thank God I didn't play the role of Goody Two Shoes earlier. I'd look mighty stupid right now.
I mean, because that's exactly what just happened here. Instead, it was you flinging that chair in, and my God, that sounded like a damn gun going off, Arn, in the arena.
You better hit Butch Reed. If you're going to hit him with a chair, you better hit him hard. I mean real hard, or you're going to piss him off.
I was going to say, what is the exact protocol for swinging a steel chair at a badass like Butch?
Hard as possible. Hard as possible, and pray.
Listen, guys, this is just this is another instance of the physicality and the physical nature of this program that you had with Doom, Arn, you and Rick. So there you go.
Hey, you know, those guys are on any level, street level, professional level, any level you want to look at those two guys, but they're a couple of badasses. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Every time we went in there, I was nervous wreck. Because a guy like that will hurt you without even meaning to hurt you. They just possess so much power, so much strength, so much guts, and just don't give a damn.
And I like it because here in this storyline that we've been kind of following along the last few weeks, I think it really helps you guys move the story forward, the steel chair shot. Now, I know in today's era of wrestling and steel chair shots, especially to the head, obviously there's a lot more we understand and realize with concussion protocol and all that stuff. But that was, if you're slamming someone in the back, that's a little bit different. What's your stance on use of steel chairs now in the business, Arn?
Well, I mean, hitting somebody in the head with a steel chair, you can't mask it. You can't make it something less than what it is. It's dangerous. We have learned that many of us later in life, suffer memory issues and all kind of things from getting hit in the head with chairs. And I don't think it was ever looked at by anybody as being not exactly what it was. We just didn't have the medical community stepping up and go, hey, you guys need to hold up for a minute. We got some information for you.
Yeah.
And when they started really researching it because of all the issues that guys were having later in life, then we found out, okay, risk versus reward. I mean, look at the NFL now or college football right now. The helmet-to-helmet thing is a big issue.
Yeah, as it should be. I mean, my goodness, you got to feel bad. You saw Mike Webster and everything that came out from him, the former Steelers linebacker, really that opened Pandora's box. But it's you got to think about life after the wrestling life. I look at you, and here we get to sit and talk, and you have now you have your own podcast where you can tell your stories about your career. And, that's important to be able to have that memory and to be able to have those thoughts and be able to share and meet fans and recall when they talk about specific moments that made a big deal in their life. These are all things you want to remember, your family time, your grandchildren, one day, all that stuff, So it's important, man. And I'm so glad there's so much more attention paid to it by a lot of people in the business, NFL, wrestling, all over.
Yep, and so am I, because I have memory lapse now. It's like I'll know what I'm fixing to ask you, and I'll get all the way to the punchline, whatever the last word or two is, and sometimes I draw a blank.
Yeah,
and that's one of those things. What was I gonna?
Just a little fog here and there.
What was the question I was going to ask? God Almighty, and you feel mighty foolish, and you have to stop and think about it sometimes. And I'm not sugarcoating it. It's nothing that on a daily basis, like I don't leave the house and head to the grocery store and forget where I'm going and end up just riding around trying to remember where I was going. But as horrifying as that may sound, some people we know very well do have it to that degree, and they're still functioning out there in society and the real world. But that's something that when you hear one of your friends that you really care about, that you wrestled 1,000,000 times, and he tells you a story like that. Hey, I left to go to the grocery store and got down the road and couldn't remember, had to go back home and ask the wife, what was I leaving to do? It's pretty damn frightening.
It is. So scary.
Happy holidays, everybody. This is Jason Sensation, and I had the utmost pleasure of sitting down with Top Guy members to tell my story of being the greatest wrestling impersonator of all time. The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. Check it out on ad-free shows right now.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. Andre the Giant, you think you're gonna end Hulkamania, man? Well, Hulkamania's gonna run wild on you, man. And what you gonna do, brother, when Hulkamania and all the powers of Hulkamania run wild on you, brother? You, Elizabeth, you. And I started to do his impression to him, and he flipped out on me. He lost it.
Man, hey, man, come here. Let me hear a couple of those voices. Damn, like Stone Cold. Oh, man, that's damn good.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much. Yes, Triple H, yes, I love it. SmackDown, yes.
You get out of the washroom now. You combing your hair like you're Lex Luthor? Look at you, pretty boy. You think you're Luthor? Come on.
That was so much fun. I had a blast. I love ad-free shows. And if you want to watch the entire episode on demand, you can check it out on adfreeshows.com, along with so many of my favorites.
Well, Arn, listen, we'll continue on there because on the same Clash of the Champions, we have something far less credible than the match and interview that we just watched. Wow, what a transition this is. That, of course, is the Black Scorpion. Dun, dun, dun. And I personally can't wait for you to watch this back. In our third clip of the week, you're shaking your head. You know what? I have no setup for this. We're just going right into it. We're going to watch the silly shit together, Arn. It's clip 3, Clash of the Champions from November 20th. Let's just watch and smirk. Here we go.
You wanted it. You've asked for it. I told you I'm the Mike Wallace of wrestling. Well, I got it for you. Tonight, you will finally have the chance to face see the Black Scorpion under 3.
Ollie, do me a favor, and everybody else out here and everybody out there in TV land, shut up. I've been warned against doing this, but it's something that I gotta do, and I'm gonna do it. Chance face to face.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with... What you doing? Annoy the sound engineer? But what I'm telling you is... Will you cut the music? I'm talking. Hey! Cut the music. I'm talking. Hey! Hey, whoa. Wait a minute.
I'm here, Sting.
Okay, come on over here.
Watch me while I show you.
Don't do it. You made a deal with them.
Magic.
Hey, you made a deal with them.
Come here.
I made a deal.
Watch Sting.
You guys are kind of
Deals are deals. What's this?
What is he doing to this guy?
Stay where you are,
No,
Sting.
hey, you made a deal with them.
Stand here, Paul.
What's he doing?
Watch very closely, Sting.
More black
Watch as I
magic.
spin
Black magic.
Sting. I'm too powerful. It's dark. God. It's dark.
You made a deal. You told him he could show you his black magic.
I'm letting him do his stuff. Fine, let him do it.
Watch me, Sting. Keep him back dangerously. Remember the green.
Throwing him in the cage.
Yes, the cage. Watch now, Sting. Watch
Now
what's
hold it. You promised him.
Let him go ahead and do it.
Watch very closely, Sting. I'll show you powers you never knew I possess.
Whoa.
Sting. Imagine.
Now you made him a deal. What is he? What is this?
My powers.
Hey, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to jump down there in a second. I don't care about the rules, Polly.
You made him a deal.
Sting.
Yeah, I don't care.
Catch me.
Hey, get back here.
Catch me if you can, Sting.
Get back here.
Maybe at Stargate you have a chance.
What in the world? Where did he go?
See you at Stargate, Sting.
He's done it again, fans. This is a bizarre, so bizarre. We'll be back in just a moment.
So bizarre. I don't even know what to say. We just watched some cheap ass David Copperfield shit.
How did they do it?
I don't know. Who was the kid, first of all? Was that like somebody's son or?
You know what? I don't
backstage?
know. I don't remember. I don't know. But the thing about it is, just taking it on face value, I couldn't see through the tricks.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's head spin. For those that are listening to audio only, I mean, by the way, this is they grabbed some youngster out of the crowd. Youngster, I sound like my dad. They drag him out of the crowd. They put him this contraption on his head and start spinning it so that his head looks like it's doing a 360 around his body. Okay. Then they throw him into a cage, put a little veil over it, pull the veil off, and it's some kind of leopard or cheetah or cat. Not him anymore.
I think it was a jaguar, believe it or not.
Yeah, Jaguar. They're in Jacksonville. That makes sense. And then he goes into some disappearing stand and drops the curtain. He's gone. He's disappeared. Ole's in the back, freestyle DJing into a microphone, acting like it's, doing the whole gimmick. I don't know, man. I mean, this
I'm
is
gonna give us actually a B minus
okay.
because I couldn't see through the magic. Now, how that fit into what we were doing and how that made Sting look, I don't know. That'll be up to the fans, but normally, things being the way they were at that time, we would have had all the magic tricks blow up and be able to see through them and all that.
Yeah, everything would have collapsed. And
Par for the course.
the Jaguar would have eaten the kid. Yeah, it would have been something crazy.
And they didn't. I mean, so apparently we had professional magicians who...
That old black magic.
It was, yeah. Hey, I got to say, B minus.
B minus on the trickery.
Could have been way, way worse.
Do you think the powers that be, the booking committee, Ole, when he's not, freestyle rumbling in the back, at this point, do you think they still had Flair pegged as the Black Scorpion? I mean, we're just a couple of weeks away from Starrcade. Or do you think it was still in that disarray?
Just a minor detail, just backing up just a little. If you were going to make it a little more to do with Sting and not just a guy out there doing magic tricks to Ole's voice, wouldn't it have been better if Sting got all the way to the cage?
Yes.
And was kind of patting it a little bit, and then the thing dropped and nobody was there.
Yeah.
So you got him in the shot, get his reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just Monday morning quarterback. And again,
that's all right. That's what we're here to do.
Details are important in this business. That would have been an important detail.
Part of what this is, too, it's kind of fun to go back and watch it, but it's also fun to go back with your mind of the business and point things like that out. So, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and this is not something that I would have had any, because you got to remember now, I'm just talent. I'm just in the back watching on a monitor like everybody else. I have no say-so about anything. Nobody asked me what I thought about anything. I'm
Obviously.
just a loyal soldier.
Yeah, just doing your job.
That's it.
Yep. I got you. And, that's how Tony Schiavone was, too, when he explains his career. He's like, he'd tell Conrad all the time, I was just there, and what they needed me to do, I did. And it was a different period of time. You were getting your paychecks, and you were happy to see your wife and kids when you had the opportunity, and you were there earning your paychecks.
Yeah, and if you would have spoke up too much, they'd have probably canned you because new startup company, new guy at the helm running the company,
Jim
wanted
Hurd,
to do
right.
This was all his stuff. He had the final say on all this.
It's easy for us to say, I would have said something. Well, listen, yeah, you say that, but you're not in the position of earning that paycheck and needing that livelihood and paying your bills.
Guaranteed every 2 weeks, no matter what. That was unheard of in the history of the business.
Very good point. Yep.
You're not going to mess up that deal. If you would have screwed that deal up, holy smokes!
How dumb could you be?
You got murdered.
Yeah. No,
Locker room would have killed you.
So at the end of this, what you're telling me, Arn, is you were in the back with a standing ovation for the magic tricks.
Thought it was great.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to know who the kid was because he was definitely a plant. I'm like, this has got to be somebody in the back's kid or something because he's just not some guy out of the audience.
Or maybe he was the magician.
There you go. He's the one who taught them all how to do it. Let's go with that. We're going to go. Arn and Paul have decided that was the magician they learned from. Update Wikipedia. Finally, Arn, we cannot forget that during this period of time, you're still the television champion. You still have that television championship. You're defending this championship regularly on the syndicated programs. And in our final clip of the week, we have a pre-match interview with you and Missy Hyatt, as well as the finish to a match that you wrestled with everybody's favorite rooster, Terry Taylor, on the NWA main event from November 25th, 1990. This is our final clip of the week, guys, only for this week. It's from NWA main event, November 25th, 1990. Let's check it out.
Arn Anderson, and tomorrow night on the main event, you're going to defend your world television title against Terry Taylor. What are your thoughts on this match?
Well, Missy, Terry Taylor's a qualified athlete, but he's like a lot of the other critics who think all these problems we're having with Doom, the Horsemen can't concentrate on their bread and butter, which is my world television title. Tomorrow night, the world to see Terry Taylor that I am truly the greatest world television champion of all time.
Taylor,
Taylor following Anderson in. I think we all did. All right, 60 seconds left. There's only a minute left. On top, and Anderson this time gets the shoulder up. Taylor's having a hard time with that lateral press because he's only got one arm. That's working effectively. Atomic drop into the belly to back suplex, and he got a 2.5.
That'll be a great upset if Terry Taylor beats out Anderson today.
Anderson caught him coming in with that knee. This may be all. Hit him right in the face. With it, Taylor does not quit.
Remaining in this match, 30 seconds.
Taylor will not give it up. He will not quit. He's got a 2 counts in a row, but he won't quit.
They better hurry.
He's going to DDT. It's going to help a rope.
Remaining in this match, 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Anderson missed the DDT.
Oh, no.
He's on top. And another near fall.
4, 3.
I can't believe this.
1.
And there's the bell. What a match we've just seen here on TBS in the main event. A time limit draw. Anderson will retain the championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Pee Wee Anderson says the time limit has expired. This match is a draw. The world's television champion is still Arn Anderson.
There it is, a draw with Terry Taylor and William Regal, who we've talked about a little bit today. He would win multiple matches by draw when he was TV champion. You retain the title here, same fashion, time limit draw, which I like. Are you a fan of how they would do the time limit and count it down at the end of the show? It created excitement for us as a fan, like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. That was the whole idea. Yeah, the time limit, whatever it was, I think it worked its way up to, at one point, 30 minutes, somewhere down the road. But the idea was I was the champion, and in this particular defense, I didn't have to win. All I had to do was survive the time limit. But other than being called a time limit draw, I was the champion if I survived the time limit. So you're talking about, putting the onus on the challenger.
That's
and
right.
Him having to do a complete victory, I thought it was a pretty good concept. And I think it would hold up today if you had the right two guys. The whole idea is the last 2 or 3 minutes, start hitting the false finishes.
I love what you basically said there. As a challenger, it's your job to beat me. As champion, it's not my job to beat you. You need to beat me. That's
correct.
How it works.
Correct.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about Terry Taylor before we moved on, because we've talked about him. He's not the Red Rooster, obviously, here. I know I made the crack about it, but he's capable. He's smooth in the ring working with you. We just saw a little bit of it there. But do you think, man, what prevented someone like him from being a little bit bigger? Was it his attitude? Was it promo ability, personality, any of these things? What prevented him from being a true star, you think?
Well, what you didn't see was the career he had prior to that. I mean, he was Bill Watts like Terry. He used Terry well. Memphis, Terry used very well. So he had a solid career, not necessarily working right on top, but somewhere close to it. Terry was a very talented performer, really was. But I don't think you ever overcome something like the Red Rooster.
Yeah.
And it was done just to rib him and to torture him and and people that were in a position to sit there in the big chair and just have a good laugh. But I don't know that once, that was the one thing that I was thankful that when Tully and I went to WWF, they did not turn us into a cartoon.
Mm.
For everything else that went south, we weren't made to be a cartoon, and that was my only fear.
Yeah, you're right. You were talking about Bill Watts, and I started thinking about his time in the UWF. And regionally, like you mentioned, the regional promotions, he was always, solid hand, TV champ, this and that. But, that Red Rooster gimmick, man, that just, no overcoming that when it comes to the national stage. You're just branded. You're branded and labeled and hard to get away from it.
Yeah, no joke. It's a shame because, handsome guy, a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge, good psychology. Everything. He had everything to be a good, solid player for you. But, man, when you crucify him like that, it's tough.
Well, buddy, before we wrap up this week, this is our favorite part of the show. We have some fan questions and some listeners who wrote in and have some questions for you on the month of November 1990. So we're going to tackle those. Ted the Hillbilly Heel, he wants to know, since it had been a year since you and Tully teamed together, so it's right at a year's time, were you guys still in contact? You talked a little bit about this on the Ask Arn episode, but had you remained in contact at this point?
No, life moves on. I was concentrating on, what was going on at that point in time. You can't look back. The Horseman thing was in the, that version of the Horseman was in the, background, and it was something that I knew at that point would never could never return to what it was. But, again, when you're in this business and you go home and you finally get a day off, you spend that with your family. You're not talking to other wrestlers and all that stuff. You got to go home and just clear your head.
Yep. All good. Drew Landy's back next, and he had asked the question about returning Sid back to his tuxedo. He has another question that I think's fun. How well do you think Teddy Long could have taken the spine buster? It looks like he needed one then, as bad as Shivani does now.
Agreed. Brother Landry, agreed. I hope that we would have needed a dustpan to get Teddy up from a spine buster, but
if you needed a dustpan to get Teddy up from a spine buster, what would you need to get Shivani up from a spine buster?
I don't know. I don't know that Tony, he's so ornery. I don't know that he might even figure out to be the first guy to counter it.
Yeah. Wow, you think he could counter it?
Can you imagine that? Because he's the last one you would ever think.
That's a good, valid point.
I'm a fan of what ifs. You know that.
I know you are.
That's a big what if.
Guys, you heard it. He loves what if. So if we're going to keep sourcing questions. So if you can come up with some fun what ifs, I would love to ask him, because this is good stuff. So Teddy Long would need a dustpan though after you delivered the spine buster. I love that line. Shivani might need a dump truck though. He's a little more stout to pick up his pieces.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if at my age, if I could even get him up and get the rotation started.
I mean, you did Vader at one point in your life, so I guess you could turn Shivani.
Much healthier when I did Vader, I think.
Wrestling alternate commentary is here this week with what can only be a rib. How would you, he would like to know your thoughts on Mike Shaw, also known as Norman the Lunatic. Speaking of big men, did you give him a couple spine busters back in the day?
No. Norman the Lunatic. Yeah, that had to be a Kevin Sullivan thing. There's no way around it. That would have been a Kevin thing. And he had a pretty good run there for a minute, I think, as Norman the Lunatic. Did he not?
He did.
Yeah, and that's really about all I really remember him. He was a big guy.
I mean, he would be, he was a big boy. He'd become Bastion Booger in the WWF, remember that? And he kind of wore like some kind of a slingshot outfit. I don't know if you remember that, Arn, but it kind of.
I'm not trying to remember that.
No, you don't. You don't want to remember it at all. It kind of cut down underneath his man boobs a little bit, but I just didn't know if you ever shared a moment with him at a Waffle House or anything like that on the road.
No.
Okay. Friend of the show, Lenny Bakken asks, Arn, you had been back with WCW for a year at this point. Hypothetically, if WWF had called wanting you to come back to the company, would have you considered it?
No, sir.
Not at all.
Nope. Once I settled into the routine there and saw the schedule, and it was as much this way on the doable side as WWF was the other way on just brutal side. Difference in 8 days a month and 10 days a month sometimes, and versus 24. That alone makes it a whole different animal, a whole different ball game.
And like you said, guaranteed every 2 weeks.
Oh, rain or shine, no matter what. And remember, a lot of those TVs, and I would say most of the TVs, were easy driving radius to Atlanta. So Atlanta was like a second home to me. So there were all those guys that were living in Atlanta got home that night. There were nights that we would get out of there early and we would drive back to Charlotte. You know, for me at that point in my career, it was just about, because I had been on the road with Crockett and been on the road with WWF, I mean, a lot of days straight. This was the first time I'd really had a break. And man, was it nice.
And if anybody understands the impact of guaranteed, it's Mr. Moneyman himself, Mr. Edward Jones, Lenny Bakken. So he gets it. Our final question of the week comes from Arn superfan Terrell Lewis. Terrell wrote, Arn, can you describe how it felt working the Crockett strongholds in 1990 versus working them in 1985, 86, 87, and 88 when the territory was on fire? What's the biggest difference that stands out to you when comparing these two different time periods?
Wrestling fans are very smart. I give them a lot of credit for understanding what things are. And the product that came their way, which was WCW, even though they were familiar faces, it was not Jim Crockett Promotions. It was not ran the same way. It didn't have the same stars. Some had faded. Some were from yesteryear. Some hadn't become stars yet. And it was two different products. One truly was WCW, a startup product. And they had different rules, and they had different bosses, and they had a different slant, and everything was different. Jim Crockett Promotions was a wrestling company that the fans loved quality drama and wrestling matches. And, you know, it was the best in the world that the world had seen up until that point, and it just was something different with WCW. It was a whole different product.
And if you don't understand what that means, just go back and watch the Black Scorpion Magic Show, and you'll get it. Hello. Well, Arn, that's going to conclude our coverage of November 1990, buddy. Next week, we're going to discuss the finale of the Black Scorpion at Starrcade 1990. We have the clip of how it all ended in that steel cage in St. Louis. You're working with Barry against Doom in a street fight that you referenced a couple weeks ago. So we're going to watch the end of that one together. And we're going to discuss all the other events surrounding Starrcade 1990. I know I'm excited. Are you excited, Arn?
You bet.
All right, man. That's what I like to hear. Listen, guys, one more time before we get out of here this week, arncomic.com, all one word. Come on. This is your opportunity to read the autobiography in graphic novel form of the Enforcer, Arn Anderson. So go ahead. Click on over to the link. This is an awesome present idea, too. Send it to the spouse or whoever's in your life special that might be looking for that Christmas list. This is an easy arncomic.com link and say, hey, I want this package. And you never know. This is the perfect time, Arn, for this to be going on sales at Christmas season, buddy. But this is the gift that, as an Arn fan, you definitely don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, I don't think they're adding goodies in there.
They are.
You buy a different package, you get something extra. You know, it's all meant to be fan-friendly, and just hope everybody enjoys it.
You can also go to arnlinks.com. That's arnlinks.com. That's where you're going to find everything else that you want to find in regards to Arn Anderson, whether it's his Four Horsemen merchandise store, whether it's the Arn Show merchandise store for T-shirts like he's wearing and I'm wearing, the Horseman gear and the Arn Show gear. You're going to find that there. You're going to find where to find us on socials over there, arnlinks.com, the YouTube channel. We love the support over there on YouTube. You can comment and watch the videos with us. So check it out, arnlinks.com. Arn, that's going to do it for us this week. We're going to be back together for December 1990 on behalf of the Hall of Famer and the founder of the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson. I'm Paul Bromwell, and we'll see you right back here next week on Arn.